So, if you follow real estate industry news, like me, you've been bombarded with headlines and videos and stories about the Real Estate Commission settlement recently from the National Association of Realtors, or NAR. Headlines and all kinds of incredible statements are coming out. And like everybody in the business, I also wanted to think about how does it impact me, when to share with my team, when to share with my customers. But I decided to wait a few days because I was just overwhelmed with the volume. And more importantly, what I noticed was very little perspective and thought given into how it really works to the actual customer. So, as a real estate broker here in Los Angeles, team leader of 47 agents around the country, colleague with the eXp Realty of 9,000 agents, and more importantly, an American taxpayer concerned about our industry, I put together my thoughts on what's happening as a result of this, and I want to share those with you. And I hope you find it interesting. Now, I will start off with saying I want to talk about 8 concepts that kind of color my analysis that I think are true about this and real estate industry news in general. In general, I think we're all like this lady here. We go through life taking a selfie of ourselves while speed trains coming down the tracks. In real estate, that's been true in my career. I know, out of the blue, we had the first Iraq War, we had the second Iraq War. The global economic issues of 2008 and 9, I think we saw coming, but never really treated them with the seriousness they deserved. And of course, the pandemic, I think, was impossible to see coming in the short run and had tremendous effects. But more important than that is good fundamentals are always good fundamentals, whether it be in a business or if you're a customer. Working hard, learning, being educated, working with good people are good fundamentals that always exist. Now, one of the things that I want to start off this process with is the existence of what I'm going to call fake news. Now, I don't know that I'm the only person talking about this, obviously, but I just think in general, when you look at our economy, when you look at politics, real estate news is as bad as any of it. Here's an example, and this is the first thing I'm going to start with is the fake headlines. Most of the headlines are really false. I just Google searched in Google News, National Association of Realtors announced a settlement. And here's what pops up. Local news. Okay, I'm not sure why Austin got to the head of the list here. Good for them. The way Americans buy and sell homes is about to get turned on its head. Let me assure you, that's not really going to happen. There'll be some changes. 5 ways buying and selling a house could change. Well, we could have a global freeze. We could have global warming. We could have a lot of things. Pigs could fly. The New York Times, it gives no real insight on their article, despite the prestige and it's behind the paywall. This, I think, is overriding in most news. Squeezing realtors is just what the housing market needs. Now, think about that for a second. Every realtor, and this isn't going to affect me personally. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. This isn't going to affect my income. This is going to affect the one who's struggling. This is going to affect the newer people. This is going to affect the buyer's agents who are trying to build their business. And here's Bloomberg gleefully talking about how they're going to be squeezed. And there's projections that a number of them are going to be out of the industry. Anywhere from 600,000 to 1 million are going to lose their business. $30 billion of lost income. And it's almost gleeful. Let's squeeze the realtors. I'm all for squeezing where there's fat. The question is, are they squeezing people providing valuable service to buyers and sellers? And that's what we're going to talk about as we go a little further. Here's one: the NAR settlement could make your next home more affordable. Well, that's clearly not the case. There's nothing that will make a house more affordable, but those are key words that trigger people to get them on board with, let's stick it to those nasty realtors. Make it more affordable. Sounds good. Believe me, whenever the government tells you they're doing anything to make things more affordable, nothing's more affordable. This one I thought was funny. Here's CNN and Yahoo, same headline, same picture, same guy. This article's in 2 places. How to make sure the 6% home commission really does die. Now, what are you saying? That no seller ever can charge an offer a 6% commission to their real estate agent? We have some that offer more, 7, 8%, 9% on new homes isn't uncommon, and on land in some cases, and speculative listings. Are you going to make that illegal? No. This is an idiot who is looking for some sort of a red herring to get people upset on, and most importantly, they click on their news. So those are pretty bad, I would say, headlines. In general, that's what we get these days from the real estate news. The worst of the day, though, goes to, and this is if you follow my weekly report, Fortune magazine. used to be one of the great sources of real estate information in the country. Here's one. The huge $418 million realtor settlement means you can find a home online without having to pay a buyer's agent commission. Well, that sounds great. If only that was true, maybe that would be good. And then you have here, mom and dad looking at the laptop. They're just picking out houses. There's 20 to choose from. Once we get rid of those pesky realtor commissions, there'll be houses all over the place to buy. It'll be like buying socks at Amazon. You'll choose between stripes and polka dot houses. That makes no sense at all. If there's one common complaint of buyers over the last 5 years, it's been there's no houses to buy. How does restricting the commissions to buyer's agent magically make more houses available online to sellers to buyers? I mean, it's just I do think that is the stupidest article of all of them. But not to be outdone, I think the worst marketing is done by a company that theoretically is supporting realtors, Inman, who has a website with real estate news information. They have events where people come. And I got this email today. I got about 5 copies of it. And the headline of the email is, as NAR, National Association of Realtors, settles, real estate braces for seismic shift. Well, that sounds dramatic. So is that a news piece? Well, it's only behind the paywall. It's only being sent to people who don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to it. And never let a disaster go wasted. $200 off on a 1-year subscription of Inman Select. Now, what's fascinating is if the headline said NAR settles and really will have no real impact on most realtors, they wouldn't bother putting the solicitation there. So you can see how naked the incentive is for Inman to make this decision dramatic so they can sell more subscriptions. Whether it's true or not, if they're going to choose one way or the other, they're going to talk about how dramatic it is because that's what's going to help them sell more subscriptions. And that's how perverse I think our real estate news has got. So let's talk about what I want to say are those are the headlines. I want to talk about what I'm going to say are 4 misstatements that when you hear these 4 things, they're going to be exaggerated. The 6% doesn't exist. That's a lie. I want to show you in just a second. But when they say that, either they don't know it's a lie or they know and they're just being misleading. But the truth is that real estate commissions are negotiated every single listing between buyers and sellers. I mean, just between sellers and the agents. Here's an example in my MLS. I belong to the Combined LA West Side, or CLAW MLS, and their website is themls.com. I just happened to pick the zip code I live in, 90035, no particular reason. I took all the sales in the last year that were actual marketed sales on listing. There were 71, about 6 a month. I sorted by CSO, which is cooperating sales commission. I don't know what really CSO, what the words mean, but it means this is the commission being offered to the buyer's agent from the listing. And I sorted them in order, and you can see 2% is common up until number 17. There's 2%, and then this is just a format difference between one system and another system. So you can see the first 17 are all 2%. Then you see a slew at 2.5%, 2.500 being the same. And you see 2 at 3%. So if we were to summarize 71 listings, of which 19 are either above or below 2.5, and the rest are 2.5, very few at 3%, there's 2 of them. Normally, most commonly, now we don't know this because the commission from the listing agent to the seller is not disclosed, but most commonly it's the same as the offer. Usually the seller will want you to get paid about the same as the other agent and not any more. Sometimes less, sometimes more, most commonly the same. So this isn't scientific. I'm not here to say to you the 6% doesn't exist. What I'm going to tell you is by far the most common in our market is 5%. By far, that's the most common. Now, what you'll notice a couple things when you look at this. There is no 1.75, 1.5, 1.25, 1.0, 0.5, none in my market at all. Could be there's nothing preventing you. It's just inputting the data. It's because the market supports most commonly out of 72 listings, 50 or so, at 2.5%. And sellers who want to, get the most price want to give enough incentive to buyers agents to sell the property and not too much to waste the money. And most come in around about 2.5%. Not forced. There's no rule. No company, no brokerage has such a rule. So I've currently with the XP, we don't have any such rule. We have a rule. There is no rule. I was previously with Keller Williams and Century 21. Similarly, there's a rule. There's no rule. That's the only rule. There's no rule. So, and not only that, literally today I had a listing that was a probate court confirmation case where the listing agent was offering only 3%. Now, there's a lot of reasons why. 1.5% to each side, which is less than normal. My client who knew that asked me if I would cut my commission. I said, no. And I told him why. It was a lot more work. It was a smaller transaction. And I said, fine, if you want somebody else to represent you, but I go to court, I do certain things other people don't. And he agreed and he's going to use me. That's the give and take. It's a negotiation. I'm entitled to say no. I want more than whatever he was offering me. And he's entitled to say, no, I don't want to pay you. And I might even have said to him, hey, I want 2.5%. They're going to pay me 1.5%, and you pay me the other 1%. And we'll talk about how that might work. But I didn't do that because, to be honest, I just rather do the deals and not worry about the numbers so much, as long as my customer's happy. And in this case, 1.5% was enough, and I wasn't going to take any less than that. In LA court, when they confirm sales, the judges of LA have created a rule that says they won't pay more than 5% unless there's extenuating circumstances. But however, on land, they will pay 10%, which is kind of interesting because oftentimes land is very small. 10% is sometimes not even as much as normal. Sometimes land is big and you get paid more than normal. So sometimes these rules work for customers, sometimes they don't. So the first thing I want to say is the 6% rule doesn't exist, to my knowledge. When the predictions say there'll be a drop in the cost of selling homes, there's nothing today preventing sellers from lowering their commission. They could say instead of 5%, I want to list at 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0, and they list it for sale by owner. And we as agents could say yes or no, and it's our prerogative to agree or not agree to that. But that process is already going on. So there's not going to be a drop in the cost of selling homes. Is there a cost? There won't be a drop in the cost of buying a home. Because unless the agents fumble the ball, why would a buyer pay more than they are now? It's about structuring that money. We'll talk about how that would look. And the other thing that I think is a misstatement is the drop in commission won't be $30 billion. There won't be 600,000 to 1 million realtors leaving as a result of this business. That's just not the case. They work too hard. They create too much value for their customers, as evidenced by the job they do. Third perspective I'm going to give you is the key to success in business is communicating clearly. And all this does is eliminate some tools of communication that make it harder for customers. In the end, customers with poor communication and less powerful tools will either pay more or get less. That's how life works. I also want to point out that everybody has their vested interest in this. The NAR, National Association of Realtor Management, they get paid millions of dollars a year. So they want to make sure they look good. The brands, I work for EXP. They do a great job, but they're worried about their brand, as they should be. Keller Williams, Century 21, they're worried about their brand. Coldwell Banker, as they should be. Attorneys, it's just cash. There's no higher value here. Anything they say about that is nonsense. They want their $150 million settlement, and these people will say anything to get that money at this point, and that's their business. And lastly, government. Government just wants control. One of my biggest fears is this lights a fire under government regulators who see an opportunity to disparage realtors and to basically make buying real estate like the post office, rather than FedEx, like the post office. Would not be good. Next thing I want to say is, as a taxpayer, I am horrified. This is a horrible way to change business. We have a political system where we elect leaders who are supposed to go and negotiate and put together ideas, and those ideas have to have some consensus. And there's a system of laws that go to that. Instead, we have one judge with one jury trial in one city, I guess St. Louis, Missouri, that's going to theoretically change the entire real estate industry. And that's, gleefully to the news and the press. And I think as an American citizen, to the bad, we should be having discussions. What is best for customers? What is best for sellers and buyers and agents combined? Instead, we get this lawsuit and we have attorneys who've never sold houses, maybe never buy houses, so I don't care about people buying or selling, carving out solutions to complicated relationships that have existed for my entire career. I also want to say this is cover for poor policy. I think government officials are going to jump on this because they can say, oh, we're going to make housing more affordable by eliminating commissions, for example. Well, that's to make housing more affordable. It makes it harder for buyers, agents to make a living helping their customers. It doesn't change the cost of the housing significantly, but make them look good. Same with banks. Banks are jumping on this because banks like Chase much rather lend money to Chinese companies and international conglomerates and buy up failing small and mid-sized American banks than lend money in mortgages one at a time. That's hard work. And you don't get to fly private jets around the world if you're Jamie Dimon by worrying about individual buyers of houses. You get there by financing mega corporations. And so you're going to see big banks jump on the bandwagon of punishing, I think, regulations that are going to hurt everybody but them. And I want to say, lastly, we have an example of this. There's no mystery what this looks like. We have in the commercial market basically the same conditions that this lawsuit purports. I'm going to talk about it, but there is no MLS for commercial agents. There's no requirement to be in the MLS. In fact, the opposite, if you're in a commercial office, none of your members can be in the MLS. There's no accountability for production. There's no way to verify their numbers of their production. They don't report the data to organizations like Zillow and Redfin and so on. So there's a mystery as to who does business, who doesn't. The contracts are all a mishmash. Customers are often faced with hiring an attorney to write a contract, way more expensive than escrows and the standard contracts we have. And while the commissions are less, almost all deals are double-ended, and the buyers and sellers, as a result, get a lot less service. Now, they pay less and get less, and then pay more to outside parties along the way. I don't think that serves home buyers looking to buy houses. That's my experience being in this business for 40 years. So let's get into the details. What's really going to change and how will that affect us? So there's three major changes coming forward. Number one, the field for how much the compensation for the buyer's agent is to be eliminated. Now, I showed you where it is in the listing today. The theory is that by having it, it forces a control that buyers don't have the say in. Well, that's nonsense. We're going to talk about that in just a second when we get down to the form section. But it eliminates that form. It also means that it's also based on the mistake that there's a standard rate. Now, obviously, that's not the case. If every listing needs to have a field, by definition, every listing has its own unique number that goes in that field. The other thing about limiting the forms, the field, is it forces the agreement of commission somewhere else. If we're going to continue to have listing agents cooperate with other agents, somewhere along the line, we need to agree, well, what are we offering them? Or they need to present what they expect in the commission, and somehow we have to review that. So when I get an offer, which is usually 28 pages, plus bank documents and other things, somewhere in there's going to be a form saying, I want X percent. And it'll be written in a way that I need to understand the format to say to my seller, here's how much we have to pay them. Or we can negotiate it, but at least we need to know where it is. We need to find that form and be able to agree to it. And if each time it's in a different format, then you're just going to have confusion between the buyers and the sellers as to who owes how much. The fact that it's already systematized eliminates the work, and yet both parties still can disagree and negotiate. And the competition exists now. I mean, just because a buyer's agent is offered 2.5% doesn't mean they keep it all. It's not at all uncommon for a buyer's agent to rebate back to their customer 0.5%, 1% towards a closing cost, to give them money towards the sales price. Happens all the time. So that negotiation is ongoing. That doesn't change. Just the field in the MLS is going to be eliminated. Number two major change is the MLS membership requirement is eliminated. Today, if you want to join a company like mine, eXp Realty, or any major company, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Keller Williams, Sotheby's, any of them, if they're in the MLS, then all their members are in the MLS of that office. Now, you get around that by creating two offices. Like at eXp, we have a commercial office and a residential office, and you can choose to join one or the other. I joined the residential office. I also can do commercial work, which gives me a big advantage, I think. But the other thing the MLS membership does is it creates a contractual relationship between the other agents. Literally, we've already pre-signed an agreement because I joined the MLS and the other agent joined the MLS. we've agreed to certain terms on who gets paid, how much, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do each other, and certain limits on behavior. For example, I have a listing. I'm obligated to turn in the information within 48 hours, some information sooner. I can't sit on it. I agreed to disclose certain types of information. I also can't, it forces me to be honest with the other agents. You might say, well, Bill, that's just good ethics. Okay, I agree with you, and I think I'm ethical. But I think those rules force other people to participate, because when they violate those rules, they get noticed or fined and sometimes removed from our organizations. But it does create some efficiencies in that we can agree on how to show property, how to write contracts, and how to get paid. And that's eliminated. One of the concerns I have also is about stealing clients. Today, when I get an offer as a listing agent, I can't solicit the buyer ever. They came to me through that agent as the other agent's customer by contract. Now, by law, I probably could if it wasn't for the fact that I'm in the MLS and a realtor, and that's our code of conduct. Legally, it's like saying, could any other business, a still customer walked in the door? Probably, if there's no contractual agreement. And so now, without being a new format of protecting buyer's agents, customers from possibly being poached by the listing agent, today, that's prohibited by our MLS membership. That's the second major area. The third area is it's going to require written buyer-broker agreements. Now, in California, we've had that for years. I want to say, at least 10 I can think of. We've had specific buyer and broker agreements. The reality is not all buyers want to complete those. Now, let me just show you what those forms look like. This is a standard California Association of Realtor form, and it is, maybe make it a little bigger, called a buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. And in that agreement, you put in the information, and you talk about, is it just for one property, certain types of properties, could be for all properties, how much you're going to get paid. Also, offsets. So for example, if you had an agreement with a customer today and say, well, I'm going to get paid, the common commission is 2.5%. If a listing offered 3.5%, what happens with the extra? Well, this agreement would determine that. If we agree, if the third party exceeds the buyer's obligation, the excess shall be paid to the broker or credit the buyer or whatever else. So you agree on what happens to the extra money. And the same is on the short side. Let's say that you agree, I'm going to get paid 2.5%, but the seller's paying 1.5%. That means the 1.5% comes to the agent, and the buyer agrees to pay the extra 1% to make it 2.5%. So all of those scenarios, how much an agent should agree to be paid by the by the buyer, and how much of that is from the seller, and what happens if there's excess or shortages, all that's already covered in this agreement that any agent has access to as a standard buyer representation and compensation agreement form. The problem is most buyers don't want to sign this. Now, it is good practice when you present an offer to have one of these, because at least on that property, there's no reason not to. I find at that time, buyers are ready to do that. The problem is the settlement's going to force this really for any time you engage a customer as an agent, meaning when you show them property, you have to have them under contract. Well, most buyers don't want to sign a contract before they're ready to write an offer. They want to meet multiple agents. They want to see multiple properties. They assume, in many cases rightly, you don't have access to all the market, and they want to do that. I used to actually take a copy of this form when I had a buyer consult. Before we started looking, I would go through all of the numbers and the procedures and such with my buyers, and I'd have sample forms and show them the sample forms and we need this form, and here's why. We have that form, that's why. And I had this form included, and I would say to them at the end, just for experience, even though I wrote the word, it's a sample, and put an X to it, let's sign that so you have the feeling of that. Many buyers didn't want to sign it, even in practice. So it's not so simple, not such a simple process to say. Now, the other part that is also misled is the commissions are already on the listing side. What do I mean by that? So here's a residential listing agreement. This is the standard form. When I list a property, I talk to my seller and we agree on the commission. I would check this box, maybe put 5%, 6%, 7%, 4%, whatever number the seller and I agree on is the right fee. Then I also have down here, sellers advise a broker's policy regarding cooperation with. And since in my case, I'm a member of the multiple listing, I've agreed to pay them, and I have to put a number in this box. And if I don't put that number in the box, this listing agreement's invalid, or at least I should say, I've been advised by my legal counsel the contract could be invalid. I have to discuss, it's not sufficient to tell my seller, oh, you pay me 5%, and then later leave a blank, oh, I'll put 1% to the other agent, I'll keep 4%. I need to have this signed by my customer at the time of the contract. And then this goes in the multiple listing service. Now, today, could you put 0% plus, say, $100? Yeah, right there. Just put 0%, or you can put check $100, $500, whatever number you want. Or you can put 2%, 3%, 5%, 1%. It's all negotiable. And it gets initialed by the seller, and then they sign the listing contract at the bottom, at the lot pages of this thing. And they end up signing the document. And so my point is, all of the discussions of the commission are already covered in the contract on the buyer's contract and affected by the seller's contract. One of the things I want to tell you, when you talk about waste of time of buyer's agents, last year in the real estate portals, they generated 200 million buyer leads. They Zillow and Redfin and Homes.com and Realtor.com, they sell leads to agents. And in total, they generate about 200 million leads. Now, only 4 million people bought houses. So that means about 50 buyers looked at houses for every one that bought a house. How many of them are going to sign a contract? And if they're not signing a contract by the settlement, you're really operating out of the rules of engagement. I'm not sure what that means yet. That hasn't been codified or hasn't been agreed to, but it's going to be a problem. And I think it's just going to create more paperwork and risk and worries for agents that shouldn't be there. Now, one of the most egregious examples, now this part is the entertainment part of our call, is Redfin. One of the people that always gets attention when there's a realtor issue is Redfin's CEO, Glenn Kelman. And so he interviewed by news organizations because Redfin advertises with the news. So they're kind of advertising and promoting their customer. And so here's an example. Here's the latest. This was CNBC, and the Redfin CEO reacts. Now, you have to understand, this is a guy who has badmouthed the organization already, yet he's a member of it. And their whole concept initially was they were going to displace realtors with their service instead. And they haven't really made that big a dent. And now in their latest financials, the way they're growing is by hiring more agents and paying them commissions. So here's a guy who, on one hand, he's cheering the settlement that's going to lower commissions, and yet he's trying to hire agents and pay them commissions. The whole thing, to me, seems backwards. And a couple things I think are pretty clear is there's always been a piece of the market where buyers wanted a rebate of the commission. That's always existed. Redfin has kind of consolidated that piece into their business model, and they do it. And they, I think, do it deceptively. They push their services on their customers and don't make that as clear for as I think I'm obligated to, for sure. And they've also never made a nickel in profit. And so they've been able to take investors' money and spend it building this company and competitively beat realtors who have to make a living. And so I would look at their size not as a testament of their success, but a testament to the craziness of the investors wasting money with them today. But you can see that here he advocates on this, not lowering commissions. He's trying to say, well, we've raised the standards by lowering our fees. I've been in this business for a long time. I have not had one customer. I've had customers tell me they use Redfin and save money, definitely. I've never had a customer tell me they used Redfin and got better service and were happy with them. I've never heard of that before. I've never even seen it advertised before. I haven't seen it as a part of their marketing plan, to be honest about it. So again, you want to advocate cutting commissions, find that's your business model. Good luck with that. But in reality, why don't you pay taxes along the way like the rest of us have to and play on a level playing field? Their discount system works to some degree. It always has, but it only goes so far. They're hiring agents now on regular commission plans to build their business. And again, when he talks about what's good or bad, you have to remember, this is a guy who's never sold a home. And so what I want to share with you is, as a real estate agent who works literally with sellers of homes and attorneys and families every day, I work with buyers as well and investors, but I more work with the buyer's agents than I do with the actual buyers. I refer buyers to buyer's agents, some on my team, some outside my team. I work with them every day. And I just think this is another hiccup in a long ride of your personal quest for wealth and for income. And the story I want to leave you with is a story I tell agents all the time. How is this going to affect me? How is it going to affect me if I'm a buyer's agent? How is it going to affect me if I'm a listing agent? How is it going to affect me if I'm an investor? How is it going to affect me if I'm a buyer? So the story I like to tell people is about two men who walk into a jungle, and they're walking and hiking, and all of a sudden they stumble across a man-eating tiger. And the two men, one sits down calmly, pulls off his backpack and pulls out his running shoes and starts to remove his boots and put on his running shoes. And his friend looks at him and says, "Are you crazy? You can't outrun a man-eating tiger." And the first man continues to lace up his running shoes and stands up and gets ready to run and says, "No, you don't understand. I don't have to outrun the tiger. I just have to outrun you." So in real estate, you see these proclamations and stories, and a lot of them are meant to distract you. If you're a buyer, the only thing that matters is if you get a great agent to help you find your house. If they're not great, get somebody else who is great. Ask for referrals. Find somebody who's helped other people buy great houses. If you're looking to sell a house, find a great listing agent. Make sure they're worth every penny of their commission. They should document what they're charging up front, lay out the plan for you, and impress you. They're going to deliver the results that you want. And if you're a real estate agent, don't let your company tell you need to lower your commissions or in any way suffer as a result of this. This is really a business about competing for giving best value to our customers. And the person who does that wins. I'm committed to that. I'm here to help you do that. Whether you're looking to buy or sell or build your real estate business, I'm here to help you. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate on social media. This was a special edition of my podcast on the real estate market. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me some comments. If it's too long, too much, let me know. If you like this kind of a topic from time to time, a deep dive, I'm glad to do it. As always, make today your best day ever.